Imagine a Japanese man playing a German man saying an English name in a French accent. Sounds pretty bizarre, doesn't it? Well, not only does the show we're covering today have just that.
Speed wagon.
But it's not even in the top 10 for the most unhinged moments in it. That's right, today we're covering part 2 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, also known as Battle Tendency. And yup, before you ask, this is one of my favorite parts. Why? Cause while our first JoJo was gentlemanly, honorable, and honest, this next one is gonna make you wonder if these two are even related. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The first episode of Battle Tendency, Yorks Jojo, opens with a familiar face, though you can tell it's been some time since we last saw him. It's everyone's favorite distinguished gentleman and fight narrator, Speedwagon. Speedwagon's meeting up with Straizo, who looks way too young for his age, because he's been using Hamon to look like a smoke show for as long as he can. It's been 49 years since the Dio incident, and after all those years, Speedwagon has now called Straizo because he needs his help again. Speedwagon is now a wealthy oil tycoon, and during his team's searches for undiscovered oil, they found something incredibly disturbing, a cave full of the masks Dio used to become a vampire, and a man stuck in the wall. We then cut to New York, where a little rascal named Smokey is on the prowl, looking to steal something. He sees a tourist nearby and decides to snag his wallet, only to be caught by police officers. But instead of dishing out justice, they beat Smokey up and take the wallet he just stole. That's when the owner of the wallet shows up and he looks oddly familiar. He tells the police Smokey is actually his friend, so they should let him go. But the officers threaten to beat him up too, so the man punches one of the officer's face in. The other officer is about to shoot him. However, the mysterious young man breaks his fingers using Hamon. Smokey and the man make a run for it, and that's when we find out just who he is. It's Joseph Joestar, the grandson of Jonathan Joestar. Meanwhile, Speedwagon explains to Straizo and his man that what they're looking at isn't a carving. The man in the wall is very much alive. He called Straizo so he could use Hamon to destroy him. That's when Straizo pulls a Brutus kind of move. He kills both of his men and punches Speedwagon. Turns out the de-aging effects of Hamon aren't enough for him. Straizo secretly admired Dio all those years ago, and he wants the same power now. He knows Joseph can use Hamon and plans to take him out too, so there will be no one left to stop him. With that, he puts on the mask and uses Speedwagon's blood to become a vampire. Back in New York, Smokey is now a permanent member of Joseph and Granny Arena's gang. Oh, did I mention Arena is still around? Anyways, Smokey lets us know that there's one thing about the Joestars. They're kind to a fault. We see this in full effect when a racist asshat tries to get Smokey thrown out of a restaurant. Arena, who's usually against all violence, tells Joseph to teach him a lesson. And Joseph does just that while also talking shit the entire time. We also get to see Joseph's cool as hell signature move here, predicting what someone is about to say to mess with their head.
You bastard, how could you have possibly known where they were?
You bastard! How could you possibly have known where they were? Huh?
With the thug down, his boss gets up and apologizes for his underling's behavior. He then says he heard something that hasn't hit the news yet. Straizo was killed by some Tibetan monk. Arena is heartbroken, and Joseph pummels the guy for upsetting his grandma. Later, Smokey and Joseph are at a cafe when Joseph sees Straizo staring at him from the outside. So Joseph goes outside to confront him. Straizo is about to attack, but Joseph pulls out his secret weapon, which is a Tommy gun. Yup, we're in the United States. Anyways, Joseph pumps Straizo full of lead. That was for our dear old Speedwagon. Episode 2, The Game Master, kicks off with us being reminded just how powerful vampires are. Despite having an entire clip of ammo unloaded on him, Straizo is unharmed. He says he won't make the same mistake Dio did before firing lasers from his eyes right into Joseph's head. But that wasn't Joseph. That was his reflection in the mirror. Joseph then smacks the Tommy gun in Straizo's face before channeling Hamon through it. Normally, that would have been enough to kill a vampire, but Straizo has a trick up his sleeve. A scarf that conducts Hamon like electricity. Seeing Hamon won't work, Joseph reverts to plan B, sticking a bunch of grenades on Straizo and blowing him to high hell. Where the hell is he hiding all this firepower? But even as he's blown apart, the pieces of Straizo's body start reattaching. He's still alive. Smokey asks if Joseph has a way to beat a monster like this, and Joseph says he does. It's a technique using his legs. It's called running the hell away.
My legs are in great shape.
So what are you gonna do then?
Run as fast as I can!
Straizo, not fully recovered from his injuries, kidnaps a reporter and follows Joseph to the Manhattan Bridge. Straizo gives Joseph an ultimatum: either come and face him or the reporter gets it. Joseph tries calling Straizo's bluff, but when Straizo pulls one of the woman's teeth out, he goes mad with rage and charges at him. Straizo attacks with his eye laser, but Joseph has already seen that move, so he counters it with a Hamon-powered shot glass, setting the laser right back at Straizo. Straizo attacks again, but with no scarf to save him, Joseph's Hamon punch absolutely rocks him, sending him over the bridge. Joseph catches him and asks why he got rid of Speedwagon's body. So Straizo tells him why. It was because of the man in the wall. Straizo calls him the Pillar Man and says that Joseph will meet him soon enough. Straizo then uses Hamon to blow himself up, leaving Joseph with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, we get some quick exposition. You see, it's 1938, which means World War II is in full swing, and the Germans are using everything they can to get an edge in the war. We then see a German general named Rudolf von Stroheim in a German hideout in Mexico, where he has Speedwagon? Yup, our guy is alive, thanks to German medicine, and von Stroheim has some questions for him.
Enough to destroy us all!
Make the necessary preparations for the blood-feeding experiment.
What questions? Well, questions about the Pillar Man that von Stroheim and his people are trying to revive. While von Stroheim pumps the statue with blood, Joseph makes his way to the hideout, and a mysterious man follows him. Yup, things are already getting pretty interesting. Episode 3, The Pillar Man, opens with Joseph pulling over in the middle of the desert. He feels he's being watched. Turns out, he was right, because a German spy has been following him. Why? Because the Germans actually want to bring Joseph in to ask him about Straizo. He attacks Joseph and manages to get him on the ground, but Joseph just uses Hamon to make a cactus explode in his face. He then asks the German why he wanted to know about Straizo, and the German tells him that Speedwagon is still alive. Brimming with hope, Joseph heads to the German hideout, hoping to save Speedwagon. He even sheds a tear. This guy is a cutie patootie. Back with von Stroheim, he's feeding the Pillar Man the blood of some prisoners, and the wall he's stuck in finally starts to crack. After the blood pours out, it finally happens. The Pillar Man emerges. Von Stroheim decides to name him Sanviento, and they decide to see what he's capable of.
Rise up and show us what you are made of, Sanviento!
So, they take a prisoner they turned into a vampire and pit him against Sanviento. At the start, it looks like he's losing, until they realize he's absorbing the vampire. Now bigger and stronger, Sanviento looks up at the Germans and says one word.
Major von Stroheim.
When did Jojo turn into a horror anime? Anyway, Joseph makes it to the hideout and sees a couple of perverted German soldiers guarding it. So he dresses up as a lady to woo them, only for them to instantly see through his disguise and call him hideous. Ouch. He takes offense to that and uses Hamon to drop coconuts on their heads, knocking them out. He then steals their outfit so he can break in. Meanwhile, the scientists working with von Stroheim have some terrible news. Sanviento is not in the chamber anymore, and they have no idea how he got out. Von Stroheim makes like an NFL coach and watches the tape where they see Sanviento literally broke his own skeleton so he can sneak into the vents. Before they can react, Sanviento explodes out of the vents and immediately goes inside one of the German soldiers, making him swell up. Damn. Realizing what a threat this Pillar Man could be, von Stroheim has his soldiers shoot the guy Sanviento is inside. But the guy just gets up and uses the bullets to shoot right back. Sanviento then explodes out of him and prepares to unleash their own bullets back at them. That's when a German soldier starts pulling von Stroheim's hair out, and Speedwagon realizes only one guy could be that brash. It's Joseph. Joseph uses von Stroheim's hair as a Hamon barrier to stop the bullets Sanviento shoots before he gets ready to fight him 1v1. Episode 4, Jojo vs. the Ultimate Lifeform, kicks off with von Stroheim warning Joseph how dangerous the Pillar Man is. So naturally, Joseph starts goofing around with the immortal killing machine in front of him. This guy is hilarious. He says that Sanviento probably isn't evil and is only mad because the Germans treated him like a lab rat. But when Sanviento starts ignoring him, Joseph tries attacking twice and gets put on his ass both times. Still, Sanviento is surprised. He wasn't able to absorb Joseph like he absorbs everyone else. Sanviento goes and sticks his finger inside Speedwagon's head, confirming that Joseph is indeed a unique specimen. This makes Joseph mad, and he attacks Sanviento with Hamon again. But no matter what he does, Joseph can't seem to damage him. So he pretends to get knocked out by Sanviento, and when he starts being absorbed, he uses Hamon, blowing Sanviento into two. Genius as hell move. Still, that wasn't enough to bring Sanviento down, as his body is still trying to regenerate. So Joseph ties the upper half of Sanviento's body, and he says he's gonna drag him outside, right into the sunlight. But it's it's not that easy, since Sanviento is pulling out weird powers to keep Joseph from getting outside. Seeing this, von Stroheim decides he's gonna help Joseph and opens the door. Unfortunately though, he does the anime thing where he starts monologuing instead of actually doing what he's supposed to, and because of all of that, Sanviento grabs his leg. After that, von Stroheim asks Joseph to chop his leg off, and Joseph obliges. With half the legs of a normal guy and twice the guts, von Stroheim then powers forward and opens the door, letting the sunlight in. The sun quickly starts turning Sanviento into a rock again, so he decides to hide in the only place where he can, inside von Stroheim's leg. Von Stroheim is horrified as Sanviento makes his body move towards a nearby well so he can hide inside. Realizing there's nothing more he can do, von Stroheim gets ready to blow himself up with a grenade. But before he does, he tells Joseph something important. Sanviento isn't the only Pillar Man. There are 3 more, and Joseph's Hamon is far too weak to fight them. He then also tells Joseph to go to Rome and meet a certain someone before blowing himself to smithereens. Still, even that big boom wasn't enough to kill Sanviento, who tries to get into the well. But Joseph uses the reflection of the sun to cook Sanviento, turning him back into stone before he can hide in the well. Well, that's one Pillar Man down. Episode 5, Elite Ancient Warrior, starts with Joseph heading over to Rome to meet this mystery man that's gonna help him with his Hamon. While waiting, he decides to have food, but overhears a guy making fun of him. Joseph tries to prank him with some Hamon spaghetti, but the guy sends it right back at him using Hamon himself. Turns out, this is the guy he came to meet. His name? Caesar Zappelli, a handsome, smooth-talking Hamon user who happens to be the grandson of Baron Zappelli. You remember that guy, right? Meanwhile, at the Speedwagon Foundation, the scientists find out that Sanviento is still alive. They have him trapped under a UV light which acts like the sun, and if he ever escaped from that light, he'd start tearing shit up again. Speedwagon tells the scientists that there are 3 more Pillar Men somewhere in Europe, and it's likely that Sanviento is the weakest of them all. Realizing the threat they're up against, Speedwagon decides to head to Rome to get Caesar's help. One problem with that though, Caesar despises the Joestar bloodline and refuses to work with Joseph. Joseph takes offense to that, so they start fighting. Caesar's Hamon mind controls a girl to hit Joseph before attacking him with his Hamon bubble launcher. Joseph gets rocked, but he has something planned too. He hit a Hamon-filled pigeon in the girl's mouth, and it smacks Caesar in the face, putting the pair on their knees. Okay, I've seen enough. They're gonna be best friends soon. For now though, they can't stand each other, constantly bickering over little things. That's when a German soldier named Mark shows up. He's a friend of Caesar's who's gonna take them to see the Pillar Man. However, they gotta hurry, because this first Pillar Man, named Wamu, has already woken up, and after absolutely decimating the German soldiers guarding him, he decides to touch the other 2 Pillar Men, awakening his masters, Cars and SEDC. And just like that, the Pillar Men aren't stoned anymore. They're free. That's not good. Meanwhile, Mark takes our boys to where the Pillar Men are, only for them to walk into a horror show. All the German soldiers are lying on the ground, sucked dry of their blood. That's when Wamu and his masters walk by, brushing into Mark and literally tearing half of his body off. Ouch. Wamu bends to his masters. Their goal is simple. They need to find the Red Stone of Asia. With it, they can complete their mask and gain the power to walk freely in the sun. Meanwhile, Caesar holds Mark in his hands as he screams in pain. Mark asks Caesar to end his life, and Caesar obliges, putting his friend to rest.
I'm so scared. Now the pain. Please, Caesar, you've got to kill me now.
Heartbroken by this, both Caesar and Joseph get ready to take on the Pillar Men. They're gonna pay for what they've done.
This is personal. I'll destroy these things myself!
Episode 6, The Qualities of a Hero, starts with Caesar attacking Wamu with his Hamon bubbles, trying to get revenge for his friend's death. Unfortunately though, the Pillar Men not only know about Hamon, but they know how to fight against it too. Wamu casually uses wind to pop all of Caesar's bubbles before picking him up and chucking him at a wall. That's when Joseph steps in and shows off his new technique, Hamon Clacker Volley. In this technique, he uses metal balls charged with Hamon to attack. But since he hasn't had much practice, he hits himself in the head before chucking one of them at Wamu and completely missing. His stupidity is gonna get him killed one of these days. Wamu tells Joseph to back off, but he attacks anyway, and Wamu dodges all of his attacks. Still, impressed by his spunk, Wamu decides to entertain him. He cuts Joseph's wrist and gives him a minute to attack. That's when the balls that missed Wamu fly out of the wall and hit him in the face. That was Joseph's plan all along, and he begins unloading on Wamu. But Wamu is just taking those hits to reward Joseph for being the first person to ever scar his face. Wamu then uses his Divine Sandstorm to create a storm with his hands, damaging Joseph and sending his ass flying. Now, before this, Wamu was gonna let them all go without hurting them. He just didn't care about them. But things have changed now. Wamu is a proud warrior, and now that they've seen him bleed, he has to take them out so they can't spread tales of his embarrassment. Dang it, Joseph. Realizing the situation they're in, Joseph decides to bait Wamu into following him, giving Caesar and Speedwagon time to make a run for it. Seeing this, Caesar realizes Joseph is actually an honorable guy, so he decides to go and help Joseph instead of running away. Meanwhile, Wamu sees through all of Joseph's tricks and has him dead to rights, until Joseph proposes a deal. If Wamu lets him live for a month, Joseph promises to become strong enough to beat him. What? Caesar arrives in time to hear the rest of Joseph's preposterous deal. Joseph says that since he's the first person ever to scar Wamu's face, the only way for Wamu to truly get revenge is to let Joseph train and then defeat the strongest version of him in a fair fight. Wamu, being a proud warrior, agrees. However, he won't let Joseph off that easily, so he puts a ring with poison around Joseph's heart. The poison will dissolve in 33 days, killing our dear main character unless he can beat Wamu and take his lip ring, which contains the antidote. That's when ECDC joins in on the fun and puts another ring around Joseph's neck. With that, Wamu tells him to come to the Colosseum in 33 days, and the Pillar Men leave. Joseph passes out after that, but Caesar comes to get him. With a newfound respect for this particular Joestar, Caesar says the two of them will learn Hamon and get stronger together. Told you they'd be besties. Episode 7, Lisa Hamon Coach, opens with Joseph regretting saying he could beat Wamu in a month. He should have said a year at least. But Caesar tells him to snap out of it, before explaining the problem with Joseph's Hamon usage. He wastes too much energy. That's why they've come to Venice. They're here to meet Caesar's Hamon teacher, and they immediately run into her. Her name is Lisa, and she's as deadly as she is gorgeous. She begins whooping Joseph's ass before introducing herself and putting a Hamon breathing mask on Joseph. The mask will regulate his breathing and teach him the basics of Hamon. But Lisa doesn't mince her words. If Joseph wants to master Hamon in a month, he better be ready to die for it. Yeah, I love her already.
It's good luck finding anyone who would ever marry her, even if she is kinda cute.
They all then head to Air Suplena Island, where Lisa gives our boys their first task. She chucks them into a room flowing with oil, and they have to climb a pillar covered in oil to get out. Oh, and if they can't do it, they'll die. That's why it's called the Hell Climb Pillar. How's that for an orientation class? Caesar begins scaling the pillar as he's having a rough time, while Joseph can't even get on it. So he does the most Joseph thing ever and decides to climb his way up using a rope, which Lisa cuts immediately before leaving them again. But now Joseph is mad, and he's gonna make sure he climbs that damn pillar. 28 hours later, and Caesar has made it pretty high up the wall, while Joseph hasn't made any progress. That is, until he pays attention to Caesar and realizes the trick is channeling Hamon through his fingertips. With that, Joseph starts climbing too. They both keep making it up until Joseph accidentally presses a button that makes the pillar start spitting out oil at pressures high enough to kill them. Caesar manages to make his way through the oil, but Joseph doesn't know Hamon of that level, so it doesn't look like he's gonna make it. Caesar finally makes it to the top and begs Lisa to let Joseph come up without dealing with the oil. But this is Joseph we're talking about. By the time Caesar is done begging Lisa, Joseph is already using the oil to fly his way to the top. But even though he gets close, Joseph can't scale the pillar and slips. However, Caesar catches him. With that, Lisa says they've mastered how to control Hamon. Now they need to learn how to use it. That's when her underlings, Machina and Loggins, show up. They're apparently gonna act as Joseph and Caesar's instructors. And seeing as the first thing they do is prank the duo, this is not gonna be fun. And with that, their training begins.
How can your muscles be strong if what supports them is weak as a butterfly?
Oh, this sucks!
Episode 8, The Deeper Plan, kicks off with Lisa explaining the Pillarmen's plan. Apparently, they want to use the Redstone of Asia to become truly immortal. She then shows our boys what she's been guarding, a perfect red Aegis stone. Joseph says that they should destroy it, but Lisa refuses. Why? Well, because the legend states that the Pillarmen cannot be beaten without the power of the red stone. Anyway, a couple of weeks have passed since the end of episode 7, and Joseph now has a week before he fights Wamu. So, Lisa gives the pair a final exam. Caesar has to defeat Machina, and Joseph has to defeat Loggins. Spicy. While Caesar kicks off his battle with Machina, Joseph goes looking for Loggins, and he finds him. The only problem is that he's at the end of ECDC's foot, and he's dead. ECDC somehow finds out Lisa has the red stone, and he's here to collect it. Seeing his dead instructor, Joseph is furious, and he faces ECDC 1v1. ECDC takes him lightly, but Joseph shows him how much he's grown in the last 3 weeks and chops his arm right off. In response, ECDC starts Crying? Excuse me? While Joseph wonders what the hell to do now, ECDC stops whining and gets up. He says he cries whenever he gets too emotional and that he's much better now. ECDC then replaces his arm with Logan's arm before telling Joseph his power. Basically, ECDC turns up the heat on his blood up to 500 degrees Celsius and then uses it to burn his opponents to the ground. He goads Joseph into attacking first, and then he sticks his disgusting veins into Joseph, ready to pump him full of red-hot blood. Back with Caesar, and Meshina passes him with flying colors. Caesar then pulls out his binoculars to see how Joseph is doing. Spoiler, he's not doing too well. Fortunately, he was able to avoid ECDC's pipes by using his mask, but he's on the ropes here. What's more, ECDC is doing what Joseph usually does. He's predicting what Joseph will say and do, and it's making Joseph nervous. So he tries laying a trap for ECDC using his string, but ECDC goes ahead and lays the exact same trap but better, using his veins. Watching on, Meshina says that he and Caesar can't help Joseph. They have to go protect Lisa. So Caesar heads out, wishing Joseph good luck. With his veins all around Joseph, ECDC has all but won the fight. And at that exact moment, Joseph starts laughing. He says he's won the fight. That's when Joseph wraps up ECDC in his string. It was a double trap. Now wrapped up, ECDC is powerless as Joseph channels all his Hamon into him, making him explode like a piñata. Having defeated one of the three pillar men, Joseph makes his way back to Lisa and Caesar, but there's something stuck to his back, and it looks evil. Episode 9, Commander Stroheim's Revenge kicks off as Lisa is waiting for Joseph and Caesar to return from their final exams. That's when one of her workers named Susie Q walks in and asks her which blouse she'd prefer wearing. After picking, Lisa sends Susie Q out, telling her to send Joseph and Caesar to her room if they arrive. Susie Q heads downstairs and runs into Joseph, who she doesn't recognize because he always had a mask on. The two have a little chat and there's some flirting happening here before Susie Q runs off and Joseph heads to see Lisa. However, the thing that was on Joseph's back is gone now. Where did it go? Well, we find out where it went. It went inside Susie Q. Turns out that disgusting thing was ECDC's brain. The rascal is still alive. What's more, he uses Susie Q's body to take the Aegis stone and send it away on a postal boat. He then takes Susie Q's body hostage, saying that Joseph and Lisa will have to kill her to kill him.
There is only one way for you to destroy me completely, and that is to take her life as well! Can you do that?
That's when Caesar shows up and Lisa tells him to go after the boat, but ECDC is not budging. It looks like Joseph will have to take Susie Q out to stop the red stone from falling into the stiff hands of the pillarmen. Now sure that the red stone is out of their reach, ECDC starts tearing Susie Q apart from the inside. Lisa is ready to sacrifice Susie Q for the greater good, which is harsh, but Joseph comes up with a plan. Using the techniques they learned climbing the oil pillar, Caesar and Joseph combine their Hamon and use it on Susie Q, forcing ECDC to come out. Now in the sun, ECDC hops onto Joseph as he accepts his fate and crumbles away in Joseph's hand. Even though he was pure evil, Joseph respects how far he went to get the stone to his comrades. And with that, one of the three pillarmen is actually defeated. Using Hamon, Lisa looks through Susie Q's mind and figures out where the stone is going. It's going to Switzerland. With that info, Joseph, Caesar, Lisa and Meshina hop into a car and take off for Switzerland. But before that, Joseph tells Susie Q he'll be back for her, and she's thrilled to hear that. Yup, I already ship him. If you've already seen this show, you might be thinking that I missed a very important scene. Yeah, that whole Lisa bad scene, but you know what? I refuse to cover it. Take that, perverts. Meanwhile, Cars is in Switzerland waiting for a call from ECDC that never comes. Realizing something has happened to him, Cars decides to move out. Meanwhile, Joseph and the others make it to the train that the redstone is on, only to find it surrounded by German soldiers. Their leader heads over to the bus and takes the redstone in his custody before telling the good guys to follow him to their lodge. Who is this leader? Well, we find that out later that night when Cars attacks the German lodge in search of the red stone. It's von Stroheim! Wait, he's alive? Episode 10, A Race Towards the Brink, opens with Cars and the new and improved von Stroheim facing off. And I call him that because the Germans replaced every single part of him that he lost in the explosion with state-of-the-art technological replacements. Now he's twice as strong as Sanviento and he plans to destroy Cars here and now. But when Cars slices his cyborg ass in half, von Stroheim realizes that Sanviento was nothing but a guard dog compared to Cars. This guy is next level. Cars' plan is simple: get the red stone of Asia and kill Joseph as revenge for ECDC. Joseph's face says it all. He's terrified. Kars takes the redstone from von Stroheim and gets ready to end him, saying Joseph is next. But the German dude has one trick up his sleeve, or rather in his eye, and that trick is a UV laser that he blasts at Kars, which makes him drop the redstone.
German science is the world's greatest! I will beat you!
The redstone starts slipping and is gonna fall off a nearby cliff, so it's a foot race between Joseph and Kars to get to it first. Kars wins the race and grabs it, but Joseph uses the snow to get Kars to drop the redstone and fall off the cliff, only for Kars to stab Joseph and take him along for the ride. Great. With the two of them falling down the cliff, Kars isn't worried. After all, he's an immortal vampire, so he decides to make sure Joseph has no way of saving himself from falling, and then he attacks. It looks like Joseph is cooked, until he uses the redstone to defend himself. He then kicks Kars away and, with some Hamon help from Caesar, manages to avoid falling to his death. Kars makes it to the bottom and is impressed by Joseph's adaptability. He then decides to let Joseph hold the stone for another day, which just makes him sound like a sore loser to me at least. The next day, Joseph is on edge. There are 5 days until his rematch with Wamu, and I understand his concern. I mean, imagine having poison inside you and the only way to get the antidote is to beat an immortal Aztec stripper god. That's a rough situation to be in. That's when Lisa tells Joseph and Caesar the location of Kars' hideout. Caesar wants all 4 of them to go in and kick vampire ass, but Joseph thinks they need to wait for Kars to make the first move. They get into an argument which pisses Caesar off, so he punches Joseph. They fight, and then Caesar decides he's gonna go take down Kars himself, with Machina trying to stop him. The next episode, Caesar's Lonely Youth, starts with us finally getting to know Caesar's past. To cut a long story short, his dad abandoned Caesar and his siblings when he was just 10, and that led to Caesar turning into a delinquent. At the age of 16, Caesar tracked down his dad to Rome and planned to kill him, but instead he ended up at the carvings of the Pillarmen where his dad saved him from being sucked up. Turns out, the reason his dad was gone all this time was to travel the world and find a way to destroy the Pillarmen. With his dying breaths, Caesar's dad told him to find Lisa. That was the moment that started Caesar's Hamon journey, and it's all led him here, at the foot of Kars' hideout, ready for revenge. After hearing all this from Lisa, Joseph decides that he in fact will go and back Caesar up. But he's late. By the time Machina makes it to Caesar, he's already being attacked by some invisible enemy that came out of the hideout. This invisible man is Wamu. He's using wind to cover himself with water to both refract sunlight and be transparent. Wamu chops off Machina's arm, ouch, and drags him inside before facing Caesar. But Caesar's bubble Hamon is way more powerful than it used to be. In fact, he kicks Wamu's ass so bad that he has to run back inside. After that, Caesar chases him, ready to take the second Pillar Man out. Inside, the story is the same as outside. Caesar is giving Wamu the business. After slicing and dicing him with his bubbles, Caesar uses them to refract sunlight on Wamu, pushing him to the edge. Wamu tries to protect himself with the water again, but Caesar jumps in to deliver the final blow. However, that was his biggest mistake, because Caesar's shadow blocked the refracted sunlight on Wamu, giving him enough time to launch a divine sandstorm on Caesar point blank. With both warriors mere inches from death, Wamu will recover, but Caesar will not. So, as his dying effort, he snatches Wamu's lip ring off so he can get it to Joseph. Damn. As the building collapses and rubble falls on him, Caesar puts the lip ring with the antidote and his bandana in a bubble for Joseph to find. Much like Baron Zappelli's dying act was helping Jonathan, Caesar will die helping Joseph. A beautifully tragic symmetry playing across generations.
Jojo! This is the last of my Hamon! Take it from me!
Wamu, respecting Caesar's fighting spirit, decides to let Joseph get the antidote and goes deeper into the hideout. Meanwhile, Joseph and Lisa make it inside and find the bubble with Caesar's bandana and the antidote. As they are planning to go after Kars and Wamu, lightning falls through the cracks and the two realize they're looking at Caesar crushed underneath the rubble. The realization sends both of them to their knees, with Joseph crying his eyes out. R.I.P. Caesar Zappelli, you were a true warrior. With Caesar gone, the next episode, the 100 vs 2 strategy, sees Joseph and Lisa head after Kars and Wamu for revenge. Following Wamu's trail of blood, they make it farther inside the hideout where they run into one of Kars' vampire thugs. But Lisa is in no mood for shenanigans and effortlessly destroys him with Hamon. Yeah, she's really strong. As they make their way inside, Lisa asks Joseph why he hasn't taken the antidote yet, and Joseph says he's waiting till after he beats Wamu to take it. That's the promise he's made to Caesar. They make it inside Wamu and Kars' lair, only to find 100 vampires ready to chomp their heads off. It looks like they're cooked, until Lisa tells Kars that if they die here, the Redstone of Asia will be destroyed. She then proposes a deal. Joseph fights Wamu, she fights Kars, and the winners get the stone. For some reason, Kars agrees to this ridiculous demand, and we suddenly have a JoJo fight night on our hands.
And so now, we need to arrange a time and place for our battle.
As part of the agreement, Lisa has to stay at the hideout while Joseph goes and gets the red stone. So Joseph gets the stone, but stumbles upon something far more interesting in Lisa's suitcase. Pictures of Granny Arena, Speedwagon, Strazo, and a baby? Confused, Joseph heads to the battlefield. After showing Kars and Wamu the stone is real, he gives it to Lisa along with the pictures and demands an explanation. So Lisa tells him she was on the ship that Jonathan Joestar died on, and it was his heroics that saved her. Unfortunately, her parents didn't survive, so she was raised by Strazo, who taught her all about Hamon. So basically, Joseph killed her foster dad and she's okay with it. Although, I do feel like she's leaving some details out. Anyways, Kars then announces how Joseph and Wamu will fight, a chariot duel using vampire horses, which might sound extreme, but you'll come to realize that as far as JoJo goes, that's a regular Thursday night. Anyway, as all that gets announced, Joseph puts Wamu's ring on his finger, ties Caesar's headband on his head, and gets ready to avenge his friend. Episode 13, A True Warrior, kicks off with Wamu explaining the rules of the chariot battle. Both he and Joseph will race around the track in laps, and after each lap, a weapon will be available at a pillar. Whoever gets the weapon first has the advantage. So Joseph secretly puts a bunch of rocks in front of Wamu's wheels, meaning he gets a head start and grabs the first weapon, which is a sledgehammer. Classic Joseph. But that was Wamu's plan all along, and he proceeds to break the damn pillar that the sledgehammer was on. Now, I'd say that's cheating, but after what Joseph did, I can't complain. With the pillar, Wamu whacks Joseph, making him fall off his horse. With the horses charging at Joseph, Wamu thinks he's got him, but Joseph Joestar always does the unthinkable. So he uses his sledgehammer to jump onto Wamu's chariot and is about to bash his head in, only for Wamu to disappear. Turns out he was hiding on his horse, and he jumps out to deliver a divine sandstorm to Joseph point blank. Kars thinks the fight's over, but Lisa just smiles and tells him to look closer.
Thanks, that's quite considerate of you. But Jojo seems to be a little less dead than you thought.
That's when Kars sees Wamu's hands have been almost entirely cut off. Why? Because Joseph filled the reins of the horse with Hamon, wrapped them around Wamu's hands, and tore them apart. Ow. Now Wamu is stunned and Joseph has the upper hand, as the two make it to their next weapons, crossbows. Lisa thinks Joseph is home free, but Wamu has a trick up his sleeve. He fixes up his arms and then gouges his eyes out. Yeah, apparently he does this to psych himself up, and after that, he replaces his eyes with a horn that he can see the wind with instead. Weird. Joseph gets to the crossbows first and picks up the bigger one, which was a mistake, since it's too powerful for him to reload. With the smaller crossbow, Wamu takes out one of Joseph's horses before he trick shots the other shot right into Joseph's stomach, knocking him off the horse. As he falls off, Joseph's crossbow reloads itself, and he tries shooting Wamu, but ends up shooting into the fire instead. After all that, Joseph begins begging for his life, throwing rocks at Wamu, which pisses Wamu off.
Go away! Leave me alone! Please, I just can't take anymore!
But as most things are with Joseph, this was just a distraction. Turns out he didn't miss the ball he fired at the end of the last episode. He fired it so it would attack Wamu from behind. Wamu realizes this after it rips a hole through his chest. How's that for a trick shot? Wamu tries kicking Joseph as he falls off his horse, but Joseph counters that too, and he's won the fight, or so he thinks. With his back against the wall, Wamu has no choice but to go into kamikaze mode, so he traps Joseph with his arms before unleashing his final mode, Atmospheric Rift.
No, you shouldn't! Stop it, Wamu! It must not be done!
Uh-oh. The next episode, The Warrior of the Wind, starts with Wamu shooting a wind beam out of his horn, getting closer and closer to Joseph. So Joseph throws a Molotov cocktail at him, but Wamu just slices it up. Joseph then lights Caesar's bandana on fire and sends it at Wamu, which makes all the oil he sucked up from the cocktail explode. And just like that, Wamu becomes a big boom.
Boom! Boom!
But he's not salty. In fact, he congratulates Joseph, saying he's become a greater warrior than Wamu himself ever was. Yeah, Wamu may be a bad guy, but he's an honorable warrior.
And as a warrior,
It would now appear that you stand taller than I do.
That's when the vampire underlings start attacking Joseph, but Wamu uses his head as a weapon and stops them. Joseph asks why he did it, and Wamu says it's because Joseph is a great warrior. Wamu says that maybe the reason he lived for so long was so that he could see Joseph's growth at his end. He then asks Joseph to drink the antidote. Joseph complies, and with that he crumbles away, returning to the same wind that powered him for so long. With Wamu gone, Kars is the only Pillar Man left, and he's ready to destroy Lisa. He also has gorgeous hair, but that's besides the point. The vampires still want to gang up on Lisa and Joseph, but she threatens to destroy the redstone. Kars says he's a man of his words, and they head to the arena where they'll have their fight. As Joseph watches on, Kars uses his light powers to disappear and tries attacking Lisa from behind, only to get countered and cooked. Joseph celebrates until Kars stabs Lisa from behind. What? Turns out the Kars she thinks she hit was a random-ass vampire disguised as Kars. In reality, the rascal had no intention of giving Lisa an honorable fight like Wamu. He just wants the stone. He slices Lisa up before ordering the rest of the vampires to kill Joseph. Yeah, gorgeous hair definitely can't make up for that level of evil. Joseph gets cornered by all the vampires, and he starts fighting back. But he's exhausted from his battle with Wamu. He can't use his Hamon properly. He's about to be ganked by a bazillion vampires when they suddenly start disintegrating and a few familiar faces show up. It's von Stroheim along with Speedwagon, Smokey, and a bunch of soldiers from the German army and the Speedwagon Foundation.
Now, all you vampires will see what German science can do!
They start taking out the vampires while Joseph makes his way to Kars. Kars, being the evil rapscallion that he is, ties Lisa's legs to a rope and throws her off the side. Joseph has to catch the rope, saving her but leaving him vulnerable. As Kars makes his way towards Joseph, Smokey and Speedwagon drop a bombshell on all of us. Lisa is actually Joseph's mom. Now wait just a damn minute. The next episode, The Ties That Bind Jojo, starts with Joseph hanging on a rope as Lisa dangles over her spiky doom, with Kars trash talking the entire time. Smokey wants to tell Joseph Lisa is his mom, but Speedwagon says it's not the time to do that. With von Stroheim and his soldiers occupied with the vampire army, Joseph is on his own. So he lights his scarf on fire to motivate himself and attacks Kars, which leads to Kars cutting the rope and sending both mother and son to their demise. But, and stop me if you've heard this before, this was all part of Joseph's plan, because we soon find out that Joseph secretly adjusted the rope so it would snag on Kars' leg, and he then uses it to pin the rascal in place while keeping Lisa safe at the same time. He then charges in with the last of his Hamon and attacks, splitting Kars' arm open and sending him onto the spike below. Yup, that's gotta hurt. With Kars out of the picture, Smokey asks what we're all dying to know. Why did Speedwagon and Granny Arena hide Joseph's past from him? So Speedwagon tells him about Joseph's parents. His mom, whose real name is Elizabeth, was raised by Strazo and is a master of Hamon. His dad, George, on the other hand, was a simple non-Hamon using Chad who was in the British Air Force. Cool as hell. However, this is where it gets tricky. One of the vampires from when Jonathan fought Dio managed to survive, and he secretly worked his way into the British Air Force. George uncovered this secret, but the vampire took him out before he could inform Strazo. The Air Force tried to cover George's death up, but Speedwagon and Strazo find out and told Lisa. Naturally, she went and sliced the vampire up, but she was seen killing him, and since the Air Force knew nothing of vampires, she became a wanted criminal. Speedwagon helped hide her, but she could never be Joseph's mother again. What's more, both Lisa and Granny Arena decided to keep his parents a mystery to him, because they don't want Joseph's life to be affected by Hamon and the responsibility that comes with it. The story brings Smokey and me to tears.
Such a miserable fortune.
Smokey says now that there's no reason to hide the truth and they should tell him, but Speedwagon says that the choice is up to Lisa and Granny Arena. It's not their decision to make. Loyal to the end. That's Speedwagon for you. Meanwhile, von Stroheim and his soldiers get ready to blast Kars with a UV ray, finishing him off once and for all. However, this turns out to be a huge mistake, because as soon as they turn the light on, Kars turns his face and they see he has the stone mask with the red stone of Asia inside it. Stroheim tries stopping the ray, but it's too late. It blasts Kars and the episode ends with the stone mask beginning to take effect, evolving him. Episode 16, The Birth of a Super Being, opens with us seeing just what the stone has turned Kars into. He looks normal at first, until he turns his hand into a demonic squirrel. Oh no. That's when the sun comes up and wipes out the rest of the vampires. The good guys think they're safe until they see Kars standing in the sun unfazed. Yup, everyone's worst nightmare has come true. Kars has become the perfect being. Everyone is terrified, wondering what they're gonna do next. But Joseph has a plan, and it's one we're all familiar with. It's called grab the redstone and run the hell away. Smokey joins him as Kars chases them with wings. Oh yeah, so the thing about being the ultimate life form is you can do everything any living thing can do, and you can also do it better than them. Pretty OP, I'll say. Anyway, Smokey tries telling Joseph Lisa is his mom, but Kars catches up to them, so Joseph hijacks a German plane and takes to the sky. He then tries to think of a way to stop Kars, and as you'll come to find out, Joseph does not get along with planes. Joseph flies through the air and tries shooting at Kars, but Kars just blocks the bullets by turning his feathers into armadillo shells before chucking them at the plane. Speedwagon gets on the radio with Joseph trying to get him to safety, but Joseph has other plans. Namely, he wants to send Kars into a volcano and finish him off. Speedwagon begs him to stop and even tries telling him that Lisa is his mom, but the radio cuts off before then. Joseph then makes it to the volcano, but a series of Kars piranhas attack him while a giant squid stops the propellers, sending his plane crashing down. Not the first time or the last time Joseph Joestar has crashed a plane, remember that. Joseph has to jump out of the plane with his parachute, making him an easy target for Kars. Kars pounces on his foe, ready to end him, and finds out it's a dummy. Honestly, it's his fault for not realizing Joseph would try to trick him. I mean, that's Joseph's whole thing. Speaking of Joseph, he's still inside the plane, and he rams into Kars, saying they're both going inside the lava. But Kars shifts forms and is about to escape when a familiar cyborg hand pins him to the plane. It's Stroheim. He snuck onto the plane and was waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. With Kars stuck, he and Joseph both jump from the plane. Stroheim catches Joseph and his cyborg legs help them survive the fall. Meanwhile, Kars is being melted by the lava. Is it finally over? The final episode of Part 2, The Man Who Became God, opens with the realization that it is indeed not over. Not by a long shot, because just as Joseph and Stroheim are celebrating their victories, Kars bursts out of the ground and chops Joseph's left hand off. Ouch. Joseph writhes in pain and Stroheim has to admit it. Kars has turned into a god. Joseph tries attacking with Hamon, so Kars counters with Hamon. After all, he's the perfect being now. Why wouldn't he be able to use Hamon? Seeing this, both Joseph and Stroheim just straight up give in. I mean, how do you beat God? Kars charges up Hamon to deliver the final blow to Joseph, and it looks like the road has finally come to an end for the life of the Joestars. But that's when Joseph instinctually blocks the attack with the Redstone of Asia, which absorbs all of the Hamon in the attack. Suddenly, the volcano erupts and the piece of rock Kars and Joseph were on gets blasted into the air. As its speed increases, Kars plans to fly away to safety until Joseph's chopped arm flows up and pierces his throat. Though it was a completely random thing, Joseph says that was his plan all along, because of course he does. This messes up Kars' head. Now distracted, Kars can't see the next threat. The smaller rocks that were on the volcano are now flying upwards at insane speeds, and he gets pelted by them. The speed and power is so much, in fact, that it sends his perfect ass right into outer space. Meanwhile, the rock Joseph was on stops moving upwards and starts going back down. Thinking this is the end, he remembers everyone near and dear to him and accepts his fate as he plummets towards the ocean. Meanwhile, Kars gets frozen in outer space and he can't move, but he can't die either. He's stuck in his own personal little hell, and he deserves every bit of it. Back on Earth, Stroheim gets rescued and he confirms the report. Joseph Joestar is dead. Damn. About a month later, Granny Arena, Speedwagon, Smokey, Lisa, and the others join to attend Joseph Joestar's funeral. As Smokey says some final words, someone comes up from behind and covers Granny Arena's eyes. And that someone is none other than Joseph Joestar himself. Turns out not only did this dude survive the fight with Kars, but he ended up in Italy, where he married Susie Q. He survived the fall thanks to the rock and was rescued by a Venetian fishing crew. They then took him to Rome, where Susie Q nursed him back to health. They fell in love and got married. One problem with that, Susie Q was supposed to relay all of this information to his family via telegram, and she forgot. Joseph chases Susie Q, mad that she didn't tell them, but at this point his family doesn't care. They're just happy that the Joestar is alive. After that, some time passes and Lisa finally tells Joseph that she's his mom. She then goes on to marry a Hollywood screenwriter. Meanwhile, Granny Arena lived her life to the fullest and passed away peacefully 11 years later. 2 years after that, our GOAT, Speedwagon, dies of a heart attack after becoming the modern pioneer of American science and technology. Smokey grows up to become the mayor of his hometown, Georgia, all while Joseph is still happily married to Susie Q. As Joseph grows up some more, we see now that he is an old man who's traveling to Japan to meet his daughter. Hell, he even has a grandson. And as we see some stupid seamen pulling out an ever so familiar coffin from the sea, we catch a glimpse of that grandson. His name is Jotaro Kujo, and he's going to be our next JoJo. And that was our recap of part 2. Young Joseph is easily my favorite JoJo, and even if he isn't your favorite, he sure is the funniest. Thanks for watching, you guys, and remember to keep the notifications on for the next upload, because JoJo's Bizarre Adventures have only just begun.